Did little man go with you guys to lunch?
He did not. No, I was actually, nope. I left my house just to go drop off a gift for a secret Santa party for the kids, and then was intercepted by my sister and mom, and was able to delegate the gift drop off to my sister, and just went out there and had lunch, man.
Nice.
So,
Where'd you guys go?
Sid's Garage.
Oh, is it good?
I mean, it's not
five?
bad. It's not
5
bad.
on 10?
Yeah, I'd give it a 5 or 6. It wasn't that spectacular, I didn't think, for the location. I can't imagine it's cheap to rent space in the village out there.
Right.
And it wasn't bad, but it was just, it's like, it's a la carte. You know, it's like you order the burger, it doesn't come with fries. Then you got to order the fries separately.
Oh, really?
And the fries
Is it a make your own burger type like the counter was?
Mm-mm. No, it's like a really gourmet. Like they've got like everything's fancied up. It's like cayenne raspberry jelly with a pickled tomato on ciabatta bread with Italian herbs, and it's kind of a fancy dancy deal. So, but yeah, I was able to talk about crypto out there with my mom.
With your mom? Oh, what's she saying?
Well, I was just saying I was coming over here to meet with you.
Yeah.
And I said, I always call you Gary, my crypto guy.
Yeah.
And she's a bit of a free thinker. She's old, so she has an older mindset, but she pushes herself to bridge that, and, you know, is always interested in and inquires about newer things. So I was just telling her that I was coming over to meet with you to talk about it, and she was like, "Oh, that's really interesting. I've heard about that." So I was able to share a little bit about some of the stuff that I'm doing, that we're kind of talking about, that you're doing, just the crazy staking, passive income reward potential, with the ability for appreciation, you know, and depreciation, obviously, but over time, appreciation, which we've seen. I mean, if you look at crypto from 3 years ago, it's up. No, it's gone up and down, up and up and down. But overall, it's up. And so the crazy thought that I had for them out there was, because of course, whenever you tell somebody you can get 75% on your money, or even 25% on your money, or whatever, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's too good to be true. Right? Why would anybody do that?" And so the answers that have kind of come to me to kind of explain that is, who said that you couldn't?
Right. Who's telling you
telling you that you can't get 75% on your money?
Right.
Why is that impossible?
Right.
And then when you say that, they go, "Well, I don't know. That's just what I've always heard." And it's like, okay, but who told you that? Well, my bank.
So they're setting up the expectation for you.
And I said, what would be the best return you could hope for, like, say, in your IRA or your 401k? Like, what would be just rocket moonshot, you know, 10, 20%, like that would, and maybe just like for a year or two, or a few years over the course of 20 years or something like that, you know, maybe you average 11% or 8% or whatever that may be. Like, that's what the expectation is. And I said, and then who controls that? Who's picking your funds? If you want to move your money in a 401k from one medium grade stock to an aggressive stock or a more conservative stock, how do you do that? Oh, well, I've got to go online and log into my account and, you know, go to customer service. I have to call my broker. I don't even know who he is. I don't actually know.
Yeah.
I actually don't know. They sent me a questionnaire. I filled it out, and then I sent them my money, and they put it into this thing, and I get these statements.
Right.
That's it. And I said, well, that costs money, and there's a lot of overhead with that. Think about that person who does that for you, their office, their fixed expenses, those statements. I said, if you were to eliminate all of that, brick and mortar, CEOs, board members, ATMs, whatever, like, wow, 25% to the house is a great take if you have a fairly limited overhead.
Yeah, and they don't actually tell you how much they're making. You don't see their books.
The bank?
Yeah.
That's exactly.
So how do you know they're not getting 300% a year and they're giving you 10? Because they've set up that expectation that 10 is great, but they're making 300 on the back end.
Exactly.
Dude.
Well, and that's what the example I used for them was, let's say you give a bank $100,000 and they're going to give you 1%. So the 99%, let's just say it's only 100%, not 300% or whatever. They're keeping 99% of whatever they do with that money.
Exactly.
And when you want to go get that $100,000, they're not going to give it to you.
It's a nightmare.
You don't have it in a box downstairs with your name on it.
Right.
They're going to ask you why you want it. They're going to report it to the IRS. They're going to have to order that funds. Then they're going to treat you like garbage and like a criminal when you come to get it. And that's something that my wife and I kind of went through with the beginning of the pandemic. We went and took out a large chunk of money just because for safety, nobody knew what was happening when we first got locked down. And it was a freaking eye-opener of how hard it was and how they treated us.
Like criminals?
Kind of.
Like you're doing something nefarious, or why are you pulling this out? Well, it's because, again, like the status quo, our culture is so programmed. The Matrix is so programmed that, like you said, is that they're not doing it on purpose. They're doing because they work for the Matrix. So they're like, you're really pushing them out of their comfort zone or out of their it's cognitive biases, like, whoa, like, why are you doing this? And like the culture is the bank is the safest place to keep your money.
And that's what they kept telling us over and over again. And what it was, I went in to the teller, it was Mountain West Bank on the corner of Eagle and Fairview. And I went in and I said, I want $50,000. I wanted to withdraw that. And the teller looked at me like, what? I was like, I don't want to withdraw. I have more than that in the account. I would like to withdraw that. Oh, you can't. That was her initial response to me, was you can't. And I said, well, that doesn't seem reasonable because it's my money and I want it and you have it and I gave it to you and I can take it out. Oh, no, you're going to have to call the branch office and talk to a manager. And I said, so how? There's no one here I can talk to right now. I can't go sit down with the banker or figure this out. No.
What?
And I was just like, well, that's crazy because when I brought you the money, we didn't have to get a manager or do anything, or I didn't have to call anyone or wait or anything. So that was the first experience. And then I had to leave that day, so I couldn't get my money. So then I had to call the number. And when I talked with the customer service department, they gave me the same rundown. Why do you want it? We don't have that. What are you going to do with it? It's totally unsafe. There's no need for you to do this. Your money's insured here. Are you buying a car? Are you buying a house? Like, what are you doing with it? And I just said, it doesn't matter. I want that money and I want it as fast as I can get it. And anyways, we got it.
How long did it take?
It took about 4 days to get it. And I had to go back out and have a meeting. I'd have a scheduled meeting.
No way.
Yeah, with the manager. I had to sign a bunch of stuff. They made me fully aware they're going to report it to the IRS. And they finally gave it to me. And like literally I felt like when I was walking out of there, like they were watching, like they were like, here goes a drug dealer, or here goes this guy is walking out into the parking lot with $50,000 in cash. Like, it'd be like if you worked at a pizza joint and someone came in and ordered like 100 pizzas, that all the employees would talk about it. It'd be like, oh my gosh, you can't believe it. And it was just like, anyways, the point that was so,
wow.
Yeah, that was so, kind of eye-opening was like, that's what we're led to believe.
Right.
That's what it takes to access your cash.
Right.
And subsequently, I used that example at lunch, and I said the other day, my wife and I were going to move a large chunk of money from one investment vehicle in crypto to another. We did it at our kitchen table in our bathrobes, drinking coffee while chasing little man around. Right. And it was done instantaneously within whatever the blockchain, it took a few seconds for it to go from one place to the other for $1.
Right. No meeting,
no IRS, hassle. No hassle, no this or that. It was pretty wild. So just that kind of ripple in the matrix makes people, if they're interested, go, oh yeah, like why can't that be the case?
Right.
Why does it have to be the other way?
Yeah. Anyways. I mean, look how well we've been trained or programmed. Because, me and Chase went on a walk the other day, and man, something that really hit me. So let me ask you this. We get told that there's only 2 guarantees in life. What are they?
Taxes and death.
And who quoted that?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. So they say Ben Franklin. But here's the thing. Like I was thinking about it in the shower, like I want to do the research. Where did he say that? Like how easy would it be for the people who run the show, the media, the programmers, let's call them, how easy would it be for them to just put this idea out there?
Right.
Because like it puts like, hey, if you don't pay your taxes, or if you don't pay, what are they saying about Elon Musk? If you don't pay your fair share,
right?
Who's to say isn't it weird though that we all are doing everything we can to not pay it, or to pay as much? Everybody. Like why would you want to pay that? Like nobody like looks forward to it. And the more you understand and learn about it, the more you're like, oh, this is a scam. So it's like we get programmed by the programmers, by the people that are like running the game, so to speak, the people that wrote the instructions to Monopoly. They're the ones, they wrote the instructions. So they're putting the information out there.
Right.
And programming everybody like good little slaves to play the game the way they want it played.
And then they throw an endorsement like Ben Franklin said it.
Exactly.
And then it's like word is bond.
Right.
Who's going to argue about Ben Franklin?
Right.
So.
Right. But I wasn't there.
I wasn't there.
I didn't hear him say it.
What context was it in, even if he did say it? And maybe that was maybe that was in the context of why we need to have a revolution. At the time, like Ben Franklin and those guys were, they were probably like, yeah, the only thing that's, constant under the yoke of Britain at the time was death and taxes.
Well, my point is, what if he didn't say it?
Well,
it's totally made up.
No, it could totally be. Yeah. I mean,
it's not, he didn't say it.
Right.
They're just using it. It's a lie. Because going back to your question, like, what if it wasn't a law? What if it wasn't a law that you have to pay taxes? What if? Like, have you ever read the IRS code book?
No.
So again, it's all hearsay. Like, because all these people around us are doing it and saying it, they're all believing it. How easy is it to get them all to do that? And then they're regulating everybody else. Because then if your neighbor doesn't pay their taxes, then again, you shun them. You shame them.
Right.
It's like, oh, you don't pay your taxes? Like, oh, you're not a good person.
Right.
How weird is that?
Right.
But it's like, man, like, guess, like, our money, who do they pay taxes to? So if there's only two guarantees in life, death and taxes, why doesn't the government pay taxes? Who are they paying taxes to? Who does the Federal Reserve pay taxes to?
I think the response to that, at least the canned response or the response that we get, is that taxes obviously pay for the services that we use.
But that's not true.
Well, but like infrastructure, streets, like when they build an interstate,
that's paid for with debt.
Well,
the county, the state takes debt.
Right.
And then they say that the debt is paid back with the taxes, but that's not true.
Well, I think idealistically, and I don't know if it was nefarious or not, but idealistically that was the bargain, but it's not the case anymore because the tax revenue obviously does not pay for the infrastructure of the project. They take our tax revenue and go into debt, and then pass it on to us, and then use the guise of, police, fire, sanitation, water, sewer, this infrastructure, that's what you get in trade for it. But if you think about it, like if they needed to extend the interstate and they actually had to go to the people and say, this is going to cost X dollars and we're going to need to collect this money from you, who wants to donate to it? That probably we would never get anything done.
But actually now let's take a step back because there's different types of taxes. So the highway and infrastructure is paid for by your gasoline tax.
Right.
So that's fair. That's right. Your sales tax pays for certain things. Income tax is literally robbery.
Right.
Because it actually goes towards paying all the bureaucrats. But even their pay, like it's all like this, it's a fugazi. It's none of it. It's all this, it's a con game. It's a confidence game.
It's
like
a total con game. And then if you think about the people who are actually dictating that policy, they're the ones that don't pay the taxes. like GE and Facebook and Exxon.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because they're paying the people who are writing the policy. And just like if you think about, you asked earlier, have you ever read the IRS tax code? Well, no, who would? And even it's like you couldn't just grab that and start at page 1 and actually understand it. It's very similar to like the Catholic Church that used to give their sermons in Latin because no one spoke Latin. So it was very convenient for them to be able to say, this is what we said, and we're going to give it to you in a language you can't understand, and you'll just have to take our word for it.
Right.
Unless you took the time to go learn Latin, or if you took the time to become a CPA and a tax lawyer and actually do the due diligence to actually interpret and read the tax code, and then you could probably come up with the similar conclusion that we are. This is total BS. This is a giant scam.
Yeah. And here's how they get away with it. And I've come to the point where, like, I don't really look and resent them or blame them. I just see through the game. So I had a friend on a few weeks ago, and we were talking about the ancient mystery schools. We were talking about ancient Egypt. And back then, they had the language of the slaves, the language of the rulers, and the language of the gods. The slaves only knew, they had a completely different language than the rulers and the gods. So they only could understand that language. And so they could, by manipulating language or using language, because remember, our whole entire reality is based on words. And if you're the master of those words, you're the master of manipulating reality. So you could get those, just like now, just like we're talking about with your experience with the bank, with all these things, like they're words that have been used to shape our reality.
Sure.
And so that's what's happening right now. The W-2 employee is a slave because they have a certain bandwidth of information. And then even above that, the rulers that are, they are policing the policies that were written by the gods or the elite. So there's different languages, just like the W-2 is a classification. Right above that is the corporation or the LLC, the corpus, or it's a fake entity. And then above that is the trust. And then you also have, for the first two levels, they're ruled under civil or statutory laws. So they're not laws of the land, they're laws of man. Okay, and then above that you have the laws of the land. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. Harm against another person, that's the law of the land. All the other ones are fake, fictional statutes. They're not laws. Just like these mandates, it's not a law. It is a mandate that they say, if you break it, and by your consent, then we can punish you.
Right.
As soon as you consent to anything, it's a handshake. You're making a contract. So what I found is that as you learn these levels, and you start to learn their language, because how they get away with it is they say, it was all out there for you. We didn't hide anything from you.
Right.
You could have went and read and studied. You can go right down to the Secretary of State's office and set up an LLC, which saves you tremendous amount on your taxes versus being a W-2. You can go do that for $100. You can set up a trust for free that saves you 100% on taxes. That again, these people know about, and it's out there for you. But hey, you can't get mad at us. It was all there.
Right.
But when they get you right from a child, and we put our kids in these indoctrination camps, and then they're there. Dude, I've had this conversation with Noah's teacher. He's there 35 hours a week. That's a full-time job. So for 35 hours a week, he's being programmed. They're only allowing that slave language. I mean, they have a bell, Pavlov's dogs, man. I was just there. Bell rings. They're, huh?
Right.
Huh?
Right.
Gotta go. Bell rings. Oh, time to eat. Huh? It's already training them. Then you go to high school. They're not teaching you. I mean, they're teaching you all the history they want you to know, but they don't teach you about money.
No.
They don't teach you how to balance a checkbook, how to build credit.
Well, and with that's interesting because they used to.
Right.
Like I remember in high school, personal finance was when I was old enough to finally take that class, I think it was like a sophomore, it became an elective. It wasn't,
That's right.
It wasn't mandatory anymore. And of course at 16, who's going to elect to take personal finance? I mean, some people may, and if you have your parents are involved and that's important to them, I'm sure you would get it. But I would say that most kids, when they're picking their classes, their electives, it's like shop, PE, computer programming, or personal finance. It's like, oh, that's not really what I'm going for,
Right.
Which is a great lie, because if the less you know about personal, I mean, think about, with that being said, in my own experience, when I was 18 years old, graduated high school, you know what one of the first things I got in the mail was?
Credit card. Me too.
Yep. And I had like a $5,000 limit, and I maxed it.
Day one.
Just done. I bought all this stuff. I had no clue about APY, compounding, what the minimum payment was going to look like, and that it actually was going to take me like 12 years to pay off that $5,000, and it would have cost me, I don't know, triple that.
Right.
If I would have paid it off. And, I would think as a society, you would want your able-bodied young people that are ready to join the civilization, if you will, to understand that stuff for the very essence, so they don't get effed right off the bat.
That's the weirdest thing to me.
Yeah.
Is that, hey, if you wanted to build a grand society, you would want the best for everyone.
Yeah.
But it's like ultimately, like their plan has to backfire because of the sinister nature of it. Like, why would you want to disempower people? I guess to keep them slaves.
Well, because I think because if let's say, for example, you max your credit card out at 18, and let's say you just don't pay it. Like what's the recourse? You're going to get, penalized. They're going to come after you for a judgment, what does that do? That gives what we would call industry or the job market. I mean, it keeps people employed.
100%.
So if you didn't have people defaulting, or if you didn't have people making poor choices, then a whole bunch of people would not have jobs, and that would not work for the status quo.
Yeah.
If we were starting all over again and they were rewriting it, perhaps that would be something that would be up for debate and a topic that could be implemented, but it's not the case, and it works really well right now. So why change it?
Right. But does it work? Is it working very well, or is it just working?
It works well for certain facets of people or
right.
certain facets of industry, but it doesn't work well for the common person. Think about, so you're going to get this public education, which we pay taxes for, whether you have a kid or not. And you're going to go through this, preordained education process. And when you come out, you're not really prepared to have a checking account, do your own taxes, manage credit cards, understand investing,
right.
understand compound interest. Where do you got to go to do that? Got to go to college.
School. Oh, yeah.
You got to go to college. So now you got to go pay more money to learn what you probably should have already learned.
Right.
And now at 24 years old, you're strapped with $100,000 of ridiculous debt. And that's if you didn't max out your credit cards or get a DUI or get some girl pregnant along the way,
Yeah, yeah.
So you're freaking strapped. So now,
dude, you're just dodging bullets.
Yeah,
Life's all about dodging bullets.
So your blinders are on for the first 35 years of your life. You're hustling to pay back debt. You're trying to be a member of society. You're getting married. You're having a kid with all those responsibilities and financial obligations come with that. And then what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to buy a house, so you do that, and then you got to pay a mortgage. And so, by the time you get to, if you're lucky enough, like what I would consider us lucky enough to question and say, hey, wait a minute, kind of like Neo in the Matrix, like something's not right here. Hopefully you have enough time in your life and you're not so far damaged or your options taken away from you to where you can actually say, whoa, wait a minute. What's this other option?
Right.
Do I need to own a house? Can I put my money in a different scenario where I have more control. And then the ultimate question, like what hit me at lunch, is who said that you can't?
Who said all this stuff?
Who said that you should only get 10% on your money? Who said that you need to keep this, the bank is the safest place and that they are no more than you? Like, I don't know who said that, but that's what we believe.
Right.
That's what I believe. I have believed, and I'm challenging those beliefs now, and it's exciting. And you know, when you talk to people about it, some people pick up on it, some people just blah. But I think that's the continual education of this process we're in is, you know, you want to go out and beat people over the head with it, because then you become a fanatic and no one wants to talk to you.
Right.
But you just kind of have to pick and choose, you know, and let it come to you. And if somebody's interested, great. And if not, then you just keep on with your own stuff.
Right.
Yeah. But no, it's pretty wild.
It is wild.
Yeah.
When do you think that, like, when did you first start questioning? When did you first start, like, getting out of the matrix, or did you always question it?
I always had a question. I guess the very first question was in high school, my senior year, when I was, I would call myself rebellious. You know, I was not interested in school. I always did well enough to get by, but I never excelled, and was in, you know, kind of on the principal's bad list, if you will. I was one of those kids that, you know, they kind of looked at like, okay, what's this guy up to today? And when I was picking my classes to complete my credits to graduate, my counselor brought me in and said, hey, you need these credits so you can either take like English and, I don't know, some of these courses that were like blah, or you can get work experience in lieu of coming to school.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And at the time I thought, oh, well, this is great. I already have a job, so I can just go get paid and get credit. And so I did that. And then shortly thereafter, like when I were finally getting ready to kick me out of school via diploma, and it's like, great kid, like you're ready to join society, I got scared. And I was like, I have no clue what I'm doing. And I thought back to my senior year, like this was the year that I, you know, if I was going to go to college, if I was going to look at my grades and say, you're not proficient in computers, you're not proficient in finance or language or whatever, like this is what you should be focused on. No, they let me go wash dishes for school credit.
Wait a second. That was your job?
Yeah. I worked at a restaurant and I was a prep cook and a dishwasher.
Shut up. Yeah. So instead of learning how to use commas and semicolons
proficiently,
right?
Not just,
they said you can go wash dishes instead and get credit. What?
Yeah. And I was like, that sucks. So at my 18-year-old mind, I looked around at society. I looked at the dishwashers and the guys I worked with, and I've been to their houses and drank beer with them after school or after work and whatnot. And I thought, these guys are 40. I don't want this at 40. Like, but I have no clue what I'm going to do. I can't go back to school. I kind of pissed away my opportunity to go to college, if that was really what, you know, the next step was, just because I didn't focus on it. So I went in the military because I was like, okay, well, this makes sense. It's structure. Someone's going to tell me what to do. I have to show up to work. I'm going to get paid. I'm going to be taken care of.
Yeah.
And I did that. But that was the first time that I kind of questioned, like, this doesn't seem reasonable to take an 18-year-old, healthy, able-bodied American male or female, whatever, and give them credit for school to go wash dishes or work at the gas station.
Yeah, how's this going to help me succeed in life?
Yeah, so that was the first question, but I didn't pay any attention to it, really. I just kind of thought, oh, that's interesting. But the big one came in the crash of 2007, because I had done what I would consider everything I was supposed to do.
Right.
I went in the military. I served my country. I paid my taxes. You know, I had gotten married at the time. I came out of the military. I went and worked for my dad. Got into real estate, you know, got my license, did these things on my own, and was killing it. I had arrived. I mean, I was selling houses. The market was great. I didn't know anything about the historical nature of real estate.
Booms and busts like that.
And being on full commission, and spend, like, if you make 10 grand a month and your bills are 8 and you're in a highly, you know, leveraged employment place where, you know, it's completely dependent on market forces, i.e. 100% commission in the real estate business. If that goes away, what's your plan, kid?
Yeah.
How are you going to pay this $8,000 a month? And that's what happened. It just stopped one day. It stopped, and
no real taper off.
No, it just stopped. I mean, we all
snap.
It was kind of like it is now. I do real estate now here in Boise, and the rumblings. There was kind of this rumor, this kind of myth that this can't continue. You know, when's it going to stop? And it's great to talk about, you know, with clients or at the bar or whatever, but no one gave it any real thought. I didn't, at least.
Nobody believed that myth could come true.
Well, yeah, but what would that mean if you did believe that? You're going to have to stop.
Right, you have a vested interest in it not going down.
Yeah.
So you can't believe it's not going to go down.
What that would mean is personal responsibility. I make $10,000, I put 8 of it away, and I spend 2. That means I can't have the truck that I had, the house that I had. I can't go to the bar and just throw my credit card on the counter and just rack up a $300 bill that night. Whatever. I would have to have some accountability.
Oh, well, you were spending much or more than you made.
I was 24 years old making $100,000 a year
just
selling real estate.
Throbbing.
Yeah.
And that's
what, you know, so when the market crashed, there was no help. No one cared. I lost everything. And that's when it really hit me. Like, this is a complete joke. This is total bullshit. Like, my own personal choices and ignorance and whatever, Chicken Little, sticking my head in the sand or whatever. But also too, like, this was what I was encouraged to do. I was told by society, this was good. You're a good person. You're not in jail. You know, you're not a loser. You're not, you know, you're
working hard.
Yeah, you're
paying your taxes.
Yeah. And boom, it was gone. It was over. And then from 2007 through 2012, during the height of the crisis, if you will, it was revealed to me through my own personal experiences, but also working inside that system, of just how much of a lie it was to so many people. I mean, I took it on the nose in my own personal way. Like I said, I didn't have the income anymore to support the lifestyle I had built, and I had no real plan for that. But there were people, old people, retired folks, people who had worked at W-2, retired, pensions. It went bust. They lost everything. I was working on their short sales, selling their foreclosed houses. These people they did it all right. They did what they were supposed to do, and they lost everything. And there was no one who cared. There was nothing for them.
How did they lose everything if they were in that situation?
Well, in that crash, that was when we found out about derivatives. And again, kind of back to this language of the gods, language of the lawmakers, and language of the slaves. Like, when you went in to get a loan for a house and they told you could get a 10-year interest only, no documentation loan, most people just signed up for it because their neighbors did, the people at work did.
Stated income type. Stated income. Everybody was off. You had a pulse, you got a loan, mortgage.
Right. But what people didn't realize until it was too late, well, at least the common people didn't realize, I believe that someone somewhere knew, and it was all ordained, because if you look at the outcome of it, the people who were orchestrating it didn't get hurt. They got bailed out at all. But those people, the reason that how they lost out was because their retirement accounts, their unions, their whatever, they were investing in these derivatives and these shitty loans.
Oh,
so just like in the secondary mortgage market, like T. Rowe Price would buy these packages of loans for their investors.
Right.
Well, those loans were crap.
Oh,
and so they went bust. And that's why people who had worked for Boeing their whole life and were on this income and it was guaranteed till they died, they just said, sorry guys, it's gone. And that's it.
I've never really understood that portion of it.
It was traumatic. I mean, that's why people back, you saw old people being greeters at Walmart. And I mean, they had to go back to work. People killed themselves. I mean, people were just devastated. And so that was when the real eye opener was of like, hey, just doing what you're told, just following these guidelines, you're not safe. No one cares. They're not looking out for you. And you need to take that responsibility on yourself and look at it. And that coupled with the high school thing and just some other stuff, it was like, there's got to be a different way. There's got to be a better way. Question authority. Question these authorities. Question the norm.
Right.
Is it the best thing for you to graduate high school, go to college, get married, buy a house, have a career? Is that really the best thing for a person? Maybe it is, but maybe it's not. And just that question alone isn't ever posed to anybody, really, at least not to me. At no time in any formal education would somebody sit me down and say, hey, do you want these things? And you go, yeah. And they go, what happens if this? Are you sure? What have you thought about? Do you want to live in the same place for the rest of your life?
Right.
Do you want to do the same job for the rest of your life?
Right. Like, yeah. People think that life is static.
Wait, no, I don't.
Right.
And then that person might go, okay, well, if that's the case, then here's a different plan, or here's some ideas or some options to think about. Maybe you shouldn't buy a house. Maybe you shouldn't get married. Maybe you shouldn't go to school to be a graphic designer and spend $80,000 to do that if you maybe don't know what you want to do. Or if that fails, what are you going to do?
Right.
So yeah, that was really it. And then that journey led me all over the place. And eventually it led me to you, bro. It led me to you at a YPN meeting. And I had been listening to and the multitude of different alternative information sources. And, can't remember exactly what the conversation was, but I had said something, I think it had to do with crypto. And I had just kind of heard about it, but it resonated. And here we sit today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because you, like myself, we take in a lot of information. What was the first piece of information, documentary? What was the first thing that you watched or that you took in that created a quantum leap? Whoa.
I think the first thing was, it was a documentary called Forks Over Knives.
Oh, really? Yep. About the meat industry or whatever? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the one that really made me kind of, again, say, wait a minute, this is the norm. The norm is, we eat steak and we buy food from the grocery store and we eat stovetop and these things. And our medical profession is overwhelmed with these chronic illnesses that these very smart people are spending great deals of time learning how to combat. And it's completely or mostly self-induced. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Holy shnikes. And so that was one of the first ones that made me start to really look into, instead of watching Predator for the 50th time, I watched more documentaries, and that just, it resonated. It fed me knowledge, and it satisfied something that I hadn't been able to one, I didn't even know I had that desire, but it satisfied something that had never been satisfied before, which was knowledge and a kind of you have a choice, you have control, you can make different decisions. And just because it works, it's always worked, or this is what you've been presented, does not mean it's the only way.
Right. Yeah. That everything that we'd been taught is not everything.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information and a lot of stuff that we have never been told about.
Yeah. And on that documentary, there's two surgeons who grew up independently of each other, didn't know each other, and grew up very traditionally. And they met at a symposium and asked each other a fairly simple question, we're cardiac surgeons, and no matter if I do 2 or 20 triple bypasses today, the next day there's not less people that need it. What are we really doing good? Are we helping, or are we just accommodating? And that question for them led them into this documentary about what is it that's causing this, and why don't people know about it, and why do they continue to do it? And comes right back to kind of like the quintessential question in the Matrix, like Cypher, who betrays Morpheus and Neo. All he wants to do is get plugged back into the Matrix because it's just easier.
Right.
It's just easier. You know, it's just easier to eat that McDouble and fries and go home, and like that's so easy and it feels good. But and just like when I was 25 or 18, like nobody thinks about, oh, I might be 75 with AFib or congestive heart failure or COPD. Like nobody thinks that about themselves. It just kind of happens to you. And yeah, so that was it, man. That was the thought process of like, what happens what if I continued, like, so if I just continued on this road, pay my taxes, work my jobs, eat my McDoubles, like what's the outcome? And if you talk about probability and risk and chance, the likelihood that you're going to come out at the end, you're going to die in your bed with your family around you, health, not healthy, but, happy, like that is by far less of a chance than the alternative, which is you're going to get stuck in a nursing home. You're not going to have very good health insurance. You're going to end up just dying because you just don't really have the resources to be taken care of in a terrible way.
Oh yeah.
That's more likely the outcome than what we are told to believe, that if you go to school, go to college, pay your taxes, don't get in trouble, get married, have the kids, have the house, eat the McDoubles, think that you're doing well because you can buy ribeye or whatever, that you're not going to get congestive heart failure and die a horrible death and be on meds, the last
be a
20
good slave.
Yeah.
But yeah, it comes back around. Like all of our choices, the bill always comes.
Excuse me. It does come due, and I think the thing that we're talking about here and that we continue to talk about and that there seems to be a giant striving for is, one, first the shock and the anger that's what you've been told. And then when that you can do something, you can do a couple things with that. You can just be ignorant, you can be resentful, or you can say, okay, I've been sold a bill of goods. I can go down that trail, super easy.
What do you mean trail?
Like you could just continue with it. You could just be like, well, what am I going to do? Like I'm not going to have a job. I'm not going to eat.
It's so hard to start over from here.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. Or you can continue to seek knowledge. You can say, wait a minute. Okay, I've got, I'm hungry. I'm running around town. I'm going to swing by McDonald's. I'm going to grab a burger. Like I have to, because that's just what we do. But on the way home, can I stop by a grocery outlet and grab some apples and some cashews and some stuff to have in the car to maybe, circumvent that.
Right.
And that's where it falls on you.
Right.
And that's really the kind of it. Like, you have to do that work. It's not fun. McDoubles taste better than apples.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to be a big fat diabetic congestive heart failure patient stuck in a nursing home when you're 65 years old,
you have to change.
No one's going to do it for you.
Yeah, because we've been programmed to think and live a certain way, and that way is not conducive. Actually, we've been programmed to seek the pleasures of the body, and that it's always going to come back around.
Yeah.
The gluttony, because gluttony is just like another form of greed.
Yeah.
And so, oh my gosh.
And the thing through these alternative sources of knowledge, health, finance, the things that we're seeking and talking about right here, you can actually achieve the result of gluttony in a different way. Like eating a bacon cheeseburger from McDonald's and eating fries and watching Friends makes you feel a certain way. If you were told you could feel that certain way if you went to yoga and went out and, helped the old lady across the street or whatever, and you could still get that same feeling. If you were told that at an earlier age where you can incorporate that as an actual habit,
right?
Who would not choose that?
Yeah, it's just habits. We just have to break these habits we've been
conditioned to take.
Yeah.
And the goal, I think, of them, whatever the oligarchy, whatever you want to call it, the New World Order, who knows, is to, by the time that knowledge is gained, you're either so far in that the thought of starting over is overwhelming, and most people won't.
Right.
Or you just never gain that knowledge, and you're a person who just, maybe the last throes of your life, or when you're finally stuck in a nursing home, then you realize it and just think about but at that point it's too late. It doesn't matter. You're not paying taxes anymore. You're not doing work. So no one cares.
Yeah. Dude, that's pretty wild to think about. Is that it almost seems like, again, like the people, the programmers, they didn't see this information coming, or the widespread adoption of information. They just thought, we can keep this thing a-going.
Right.
Keep them on the Big Mac IV, keep them watching TV, keep them going to a job, and that they're never going to find out.
Right. And if they do, they'll be so far down the trail that they'll either have to do something which is totally against human nature, which is change and take the hard road, or it just won't matter anymore because they'll be so old and sick that it doesn't really, they're not going to affect that much change. So they're betting on that, or like you said, maybe they didn't have that forethought and they just were greedy bastards and thought, this is working great. We don't really think, we don't care. And then that's an interesting thought, because the very nature of liberalism, which we could say is what we're faced with today, was the spread of information. It was the old EPA people and the tree huggers and the PETA, who were pushing in the 60s and 70s for a reformed food pyramid or different types of education. And those people are in power now. And I don't know if it's backfiring on them, but the lies we're being told now by this current administration and the current world is, you'd have to be a complete fool to not see the hypocrisy or just see through it. You're like, this isn't working. Right. You're telling me the same stuff. This isn't working. But the reason that we know that now is because the internet, the information, podcasts, all this alternative stuff that they either didn't foresee or just didn't think that we would ever figure out.
Well, now to kind of even to go off in another direction is let's go back in time, to the early 50s and into the 60s. Because our homeboy Ian Lungold, going back to his information, especially over the last 121 years. So from 1900 to right now, you can see very clear distinctions or very clear changes about every 10 years, especially from 1900 to 2000. Very clear. That's why the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, it's even in our zeitgeist that we don't talk about the 1820s.
Right.
But we talk about the
roaring 20s.
Right,
yeah.
right. Yeah. So if we look at the 50s and 60s, that's when a huge shift. That's when I look at a scale. That's when the scale's tipped ever so slightly. When now the good, the light, the yugas started shifting, now we're slowly coming out of the dark age but we've been coming out of that dark age since, let's say, 1 AD.
Sure.
Because I've been listening to the Bhagavad Gita, and he's talking about he's saying just yesterday, Christians talk about this millennium. He's 1,000 years in the scope of infinity is pointless.
Sure.
It means nothing. You have to, it's in fact, the average person can't even fathom 10 years, let alone 100 or 1,000. So because a lot of the people, again, the programmers, the rulers, I would never call them elite, but the rulers, they were just coming, they were in their 20s and 30s back in the 50s and 60s. So their programming comes from that. And they could not even see the internet. No one could really see the internet.
Right.
So then once the internet happens, and here's the thing about technology, is that because it's so powerful and so useful, they have to use it.
Right.
To keep their machine going, they have to adopt it. But once they adopt it, then it's already ahead of them. So like once they adopt the internet, social media comes. Search engines come. They're so far behind now. They could never keep up,
Well, and so what's the remedy for that? We see it all around us right now. What is their solution to information form that is one step ahead of them? Regulation.
Sure.
Think about YouTube right now and Facebook and the fight we're having with censorship. Like, same with crypto.
Right.
Instead of embracing it or trying to understand it or see how it could be beneficial, there are immediate responses. Well, we're going to incorporate this into the IRS code. We're going to take this power, we're going to rein it in, and we're going to conform it to our old shitty system so that you can't get ahead.
But the key for us is, rather than resent it, is to let go and think, well, here's the thing. They can't regulate it.
Right.
They can try, just like they can't regulate the internet. And the solution to every challenge is always found in the challenge.
Right.
So yeah, you're right. Like right now, like there's already people right this second, my friend, that are creating the solution to YouTube.
Right.
Right now as we speak. Because the challenge was put up, we will find something that because now we'll learn the lesson. Oh, YouTube was a great system, but the flaw in it was centralization.
Right.
Oh, let's create one that's totally decentralized. No one, because you bring up a great point, is, man, once there's a totally decentralized YouTube that has as many users as YouTube, once there's a social media that has as many users as Facebook, it is fucking game over for them. Game, set, match. Like, they're fucked at that point.
And they know that.
Oh, yeah.
And they're fearful of it.
Well, that's why now they're throwing the kitchen sink at us.
Well,
like variant or this or that. Like, it's fear. Like, keep them oh my gosh, like, we did not see this coming.
And the insidious part, the interesting part, I think the part that is interesting, to be redundant there, is think about how they form that censorship. Imagine if they just came in unilaterally, YouTube just came out and said, no, speak about Trump, or if you say anything, bad about vaccines, you won't even give you an account. Like, it would be a terrible business model. But what they do, or what I think they do, is they form it in a fear question so that the actual users request that. Like, so if you think about like the anti-vaccine scenario right now, through the terminology of misinformation, these Neanderthals, the actual people on YouTube or the people using it are either asking for censorship or they're happy when it comes.
Right.
So that, therefore, it's kind of like your idea. You didn't ask us. We didn't censor this. You asked us to protect you. You asked us to do these things so that this medium would be, it would be a
safe place.
But with that safety
subjective.
Well, it's subjective, and it really grants them their ultimate goal, which is control,
right?
Censorship,
right? You
just can't come. You come out and say, "Oh, well, we're going to censor you." Immediate response is, "Well, that sucks. I don't want that. Like, that's not in my constitution or whatever." But if you can get the masses to ask for it, or present them with a scenario where the solution seems great and they're happy about it, then everybody still goes along with it.
Oh, not only that, but remember, because you have no constitutional rights on YouTube, because you have to abide by their constitution.
Right.
Their terms and conditions are so broad, like, oh, you violated our policy. But the policy is not clear. So they've already set themselves up where they are God. Like, hey, guess you really don't. There's no you have no constitutional or no God-given rights because you're using their platform. Right. If you don't want to use it, don't use it.
And guess what? And then the stigma that comes with that. You can be a Neanderthal. You can be an idiot. You can be a conservative, whatever. And don't use technology. Like, you're shamed, kind of, if you were to say, "Oh, I won't use YouTube." Like, go around and ask somebody who, people who don't have like a Facebook account or a cell phone.
Well, I guess what it is.
And you kind of look at them like, what's wrong with you?
Oh yeah. Like me.
Like you. Exactly, bro. I know. But that is the recourse that we only have right now, because in this paradigm we're in, you either use YouTube and consent or you don't.
Well, yeah. I mean, here's what it really comes down to is you can use it only to consume. You cannot voice your opinion.
Right.
Because if your opinion goes against their guidelines,
right,
you're out.
Which I think the curtain has been pulled back on that those guidelines, when we accept those terms and conditions, which we never read, we assume they apply across the board to everybody. If you feel like you're signing into a football game and the rules are set for everyone, but we're seeing now that's not the case.
Right.
You can have video of Black Lives Matter protests where they're burning and shooting people, but yet you say something like the vaccine's fake and you're out. So that's not the
dude,
that's not
that
the fair.
Alone might get this. Dude, we just had our last podcast, wasn't even up for a few hours.
Oh wow.
Totally.
I take that back. The vaccine's real. It's real and it's good.
I mean, now we clipped it up.
Right.
Because of they do have the technology, the AI that goes through and scans the whole thing, But
I think that very cog in the wheel, that whatever, is the reason why we're sitting here right now, and there's other alternative forms. And like you said, that very problem, while it's inconvenient and people gripe about it right now, without that, we wouldn't be pushing forward into whatever's coming next.
Yeah. That's what I mean. I'm always brainwashing myself to that belief, is that this reality that we're in is so perfect. It's all unfolding so perfectly that I can't understand it. In fact, any emotional reaction I have is something within me. I'm having a reaction to it. Like, it's not real. It's just my perception of it, So it's all subjective. So for me, the key is to just constantly go back to that mantra, is that it's all perfect. Like you're saying, is that, hey, if it's inconvenient, like even like this is like, I'm not trying to make money off it. I'm just doing it to fill my own time and to have great conversation. Right. And like, hey, because I have no idea what will happen. Like, dude, it could you could have one clip or something that goes viral and changes everything. Like, I have no idea.
Right.
But I have no expectation. And I'm looking at the whole system as a whole and saying, even like the illusion of evil within it is a part of the perfection of it all. So I have to just let go. Don't have an opinion, but it is the universe. It is God working through each individual person to unfold this whole thing, you know?
Yeah, no. And I think you're right. I think that's right. I think that's I don't want to call it law of nature, but you got to have the yin with the yang. You got to have light. So you got to have dark so you can have light, whatever. But I think the interesting part is that that conversation, that thought process for each person, because that's not easy to think about. That you have to have suffering, you have to have struggle. Like, these things have to be there in order for progress. I think you and I talked about it a while ago. I got it off of a movie. I didn't read this, but like Frederick Douglass said, without struggle, there is no progress.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of simplistic, but like, unfortunately, the things we're dealing with today and the struggles and whatnot, like, that has to come to pass in order for the next new way, the next perfection, whatever, to be revealed. Because if it wasn't, then we would all be, driving cars that got 8 miles a gallon for the rest of our lives, or whatever you want to put in there, fill in the blank. So yeah, that's a hard one to grasp, because we as humans want utopia. We want to get along. We want to be happy, but you got to work for that. There's got to be something that challenges you or challenges the status quo, the norm. so that the next new invention, the next best thing can be thought of. So it's hard. I think we all struggle with that in every day in a multitude of situations. And like you were saying, what you were talking about you believe that everything is perfect right now. Like if you could actually, and I believe that is the goal, if you could train your mind and train your consciousness to believe that, shit would be a lot simpler. You wouldn't be stressed out as much. People wouldn't be on medications, or I don't know, but that's very opposite of what I think we generally think throughout the day.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we think, oh my God, I got in a car wreck, this is horrible, or the government's going to do this to us, this is horrible, or my whatever, and you're in that thought process. But if you can think, this is for a reason, this is to challenge me, or I don't know what, but this is perfect.
Right. So hard.
Very hard.
Especially I think that also all the challenges that are manifesting in our reality today, and in fact, all the challenges, it's stimulation. It's trying to stimulate us. But if you can already see it like that, then there's no resistance.
Right.
Because suffering is resistance. Because suffering it's a choice. Suffering is taking your mind and thinking about whatever it is. You're either stuck in the past or you're afraid of the future. That's suffering. Acceptance is in the here and now. Okay, this is going on right now. Like right now, dude, we're just in this room. Life couldn't be better.
Right.
Because it's so perfect for us just right here. So it's like, outside the door, it's an illusion. It is the Maya, the great illusion of reality, that there's all these things, but it's like, no, those are just stories. They're just figments of imagination until you grab at one. And we grab at one by hopping onto a podcast, talking about this, that, or the other. Like, that's how we're grabbing onto them. And so, man, it's just to come back to it, because now it's everywhere. Everywhere.
Well, and that kind of goes back to the guy you had alluded to, Mr. Ian Lungold, about the information it's the it took 60 years for X to happen, and then it took 40, and then it took 20. Like, it's obvious the stuff is happening. The information, the paradigm shifts, the whatevers are coming at us so much faster.
Fucking
now.
Robots procreating.
Dude. I mean, what is cats and dogs living together? Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, it's coming at us super fast, man. Yeah, it is, and it's going to continue to increase.
Right.
And so we can be afraid of that.
Right.
It is overwhelming. It can be debilitating.
Yes.
If your mindset is the resistance.
Right.
The questioning of, why can't this just be the way it used to
right.
be? Why does it have to be so hard?
Right.
Or what they should really teach you in school is, like you're saying, the acceptance, finding gratitude in what it is, and just not, and just knowing that this has to come to pass in order for what you want or what you think you want to coalesce. Like, you can't, that has to be the case. And so you have to, so your mindset is how you look at it. And it's very challenging, obviously, but yeah, if you think that the world's coming to an end because, Biden's in office, or whatever, then you've lost.
Totally.
You're stuck there, and that's going to be your reality, and it's going to suck.
And you're going to be constantly consuming information that just perpetuates it.
Right.
Because how many people are going on a nature walk every day? How many people, because we are robots already. Like, we wake up, dude, the first thing I do before I even get out of bed, and I'm totally guilty of it.
Just grab my phone.
Grab that motherfucker.
Yeah.
So I'm plugging right into the matrix.
Yeah.
So it's like, how often are we breaking out of it and recentering? Like Ian talks about the top, the balance. Like, okay, I know these things are happening. As much time as I spend on my phone, like it's a lot of comedy. Like I'm all in this world of chaos right now. As like the chaos is just like there's major change happening, and when that's happening, like we are energetic beings, and so like I think that the more we do our own personal work, the higher receptive we become to all the energy. Mm-hmm. So it's like sometimes like your anxiety might not be yours. It might be your wife's because you're married, you live with someone. So it could be that. It could be, it could be all your neighbors. You're stuck in that. So if we don't have things that we're doing, drinking clean water, eating higher vibrational food, it's not like being a total vegan, but it's balance. Going into like you were talking about when you went camping. Hunting, yeah. And you were on that ridge. Like, dude, you were out of the matrix. You were plugged into God. You were plugged into that energy. But it's like, okay, that's, fantastic. But it's like, if that only gives you 1% charge on your battery, and then you go back into the fucking matrix and you're fucking watching Biden videos and you're like, it just...
It does. And I think that's, we went from everything's perfect to this portion of the conversation, but I think the key is the awareness of yourself. So like when the first is the questioning and the gaining of knowledge, not accepting the status quo. But like when I go out into nature, when I go hunting or whatever it is, when I come back to my house or drive back into Boise, like I can feel that go away. I can feel all the stuff, the traffic and the stoplights and shit. And so the obvious question that comes to my mind is, why don't I do this more often? And that's really there's the work. That would be the work for me personally, because I'm the only one that can choose to take more time to go do that and evaluate the benefit of that time. Would that time be more beneficial selling houses, or would it be more beneficial going up into the ridge and spending 4 hours or 3 hours in nature? Like what actually is in like an objective in the most objective way you could think about it in your own mind. Like, because again, we're conditioned to think, oh, we gotta work, going for a walk, that's lollygagging. But the thoughts that you have, the realizations that you have, the energy you receive, whatever it is, probably is by far better.
Well, also
in a way,
yes, because who told you walking was lollygagging?
Right.
What if by going on a nature hike at least once a week, going on a river walk or getting at least a walk every day, what if your sales increased by doing that?
Right.
What if things just started happening?
Yeah. Well, and it makes sense. We were talking about Ben Franklin earlier, and this is a question I always think about. Like, think about the distractions we have today, right? Name it. Job, kids, cell phones, Facebook, politics, money, whatever, right? Like, when's the last time? So are we good?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. So think about, when's the last time you or I or anybody out there sat down and wrote a manifesto or wrote a letter about something important to you to someone else? Like, just not time. Maybe we bang out an email or send a text, or post some obscure feeling on Facebook, Right. But think about the guys who, back in the day, those people sat down and wrote books, and then they rode a horse 4 days to the next town to share it with someone. Think about how much time that would have, that might have been taken 2 weeks. But so they weren't selling houses. He wasn't making 1,000 wood stoves. Ben Franklin supposedly made the first indoor wood stove or whatever. But what became of that? The Constitution, the United States. So my point with that is, spending that time doing those things, nature walk, writing, whatever it is, like you had just said, while you may not be as productive as what we've been told we should be, just by the very nature of expressing those things and garnering that that benefit, you might write the damn Constitution.
Right.
you know, I mean, who knows? So,
well, yeah, because to that point is we're chasing attachments, addictions. Like, why do you need? We work so hard. Why do you need to make all this money? Why can't you just be happier with less?
Because that doesn't work, bro. Because if you do that, you don't need a new car. You don't need a new TV. You don't need to add that room onto your house. You don't need, I mean, if you were just happy, I mean, think about like, you know, like there's another change in mindset. Maybe it's just because I'm older now or whatnot, but like cars. I've got a 2011 Subaru Outback that's got 190,000 miles on it. It's paid for. I freaking love it.
Yeah.
I have no desire to go buy a new car at all. And because of that, I can subtract a little bit of anxiety that I feel every day about if I didn't make that sale or I didn't make that call or if I didn't hold that open house. Like, I can release some of that knowing, hey man, I got this form of transportation that's paid for and it's good enough. I mean, it hauls my kid around. I go up in the mountains. I can throw my bike on it, whatever I want to do. I don't need, you know, the 2022 F-350 diesel crew cab for $90,000. You know, like I don't. Now, I want it. Everything points me towards it. I should have it. I work hard for it. But when you go in there and you sign that contract in blood for 72 months at $1,200 a month, what did you really do? Did you gain a truck or did you just sign away how many years of your life of toil and anxiety and work and stress? So like you got screwed.
100%.
You know?
Man.
But that doesn't work for our system. We can't have people driving 20-year-old trucks. We can't have people having, you know, old TVs or they're not the next iPhone or whatever. Right. Like you got to have that. That shit has to be produced and people have to consume it to keep this going. So if everybody took a walk, it just wouldn't work out.
Or even that is a part of although it is all perfect, that's a part of the illusion. Like there are lessons that most people have to learn. That's why we're perpetuating the materialism, because there is a lesson in it that the majority of people haven't learned yet. Like I have desires within me for the same thing. Like, hey man, I really want that Lamborghini fucking SUV.
Right.
But it's the same thing. It's like, oh, dude, to me, the greatest luxury is freedom. Time. That's the greatest luxury of all.
Ask any, and I was in the medical profession for a long time. Ask any old person who's on their deathbed or whatever, hey, do you wish, you know, and this is anecdotal, but like, do you wish you didn't buy that house, or, you know, do you really regret not, you know, taking that vacation or whatever? And they're like, no. I wish that I would have spent more time with my kid or my dog or my family, or I would have learned a second language. Like that's the shit people on their deathbed. I've held their hands. I've been there when they're dying. Like if they have the ability to, or the awareness of, that's the kind of stuff they're regretting or reminiscing. It's not the other thing. So, yeah, the trade-off is so, and that's why like the system we're in, the matrix, call it capitalism. It's consumerism. Like we have to consume. It does not work if people are driving 20-year-old trucks and living in housing that is sufficient, or
right.
You know, like do you need 3,000 square feet and 5 bedrooms on a half acre?
Right.
No, you don't need that. You can get by on an 1,100 square foot house in a neighborhood.
Right.
You're totally fine. You can still go to a concert. You can still have Christmas. You can do these things, but that doesn't sell real estate. That doesn't develop. People don't need lumber for that. I mean,
doesn't keep the machine moving forward.
Yeah.
Well, seemingly forward, because man, even then, and then think about this. Then this goes back to the education. Because to me, like the cause of materialism is inferiority. Because how many people out there go get that truck because they're getting it to look good for other people?
I think it's even. I think it. Inferiority, or even I think it's subconscious. I don't even think we really know why we're getting it. It's because we're supposed to.
Right.
We don't
by
really
getting
know.
it, I'll be happier.
Right.
I'll love myself more.
Right.
That's what I mean by going back to education. Is like I found this meme that, man, it's so profound. Is like not your dad, but your dad's dad treated him like shit. And then he learned that, and he didn't know quite how to love the way you love. But instead of like his dad called him a piece of shit, like your dad called you a loser, and then you say to little Will, "I love you."
Right. You showed me that. It was the
the
three guys yelling at each other, and the one dude ends up at every bottom of the guy's painting.
So profound.
Yeah.
So like to me, like I honestly believe that's the most important thing that we don't know is how to love ourselves, how to love others. So I think of like, man, like that's like I focus so much on that with Noah and it's not fake, like because of that like my parents, they're very loving, caring, nurturing, affectionate people. So like me growing up, like I still kiss my mom, my dad, my grandma. Like every night before bed, I kiss my parents goodnight. We would watch TV in bed with them almost every night. Like they always said, "I love you," like a lot of it. So like that was the programming I got. So now, like, when I had my son, like, I was overwhelmed with love. Like, fuck, I love you so fucking much. Like, I tell him, I'm so proud of you. You're so smart. Like, I rarely do I criticize him. I'm always praising. I love you. You're so smart. Like, even if you make a mistake, it's like, hey, okay, like, hey, we'll learn from this mistake. But it's like, dude, he's 6 years old, still kind of struggles with, going to the bathroom. And it can be so fucking frustrating, but at the same time, it's just like, I would never fucking hit him. Right. Or ever like say you're fucking hang stupid.
Shitty underwear out in the, off
never,
the porch or
dude, never. I always in my mind think like, you're learning. You're still learning. It's not in my control how fast you're going to learn. And everything I do for my family is a labor of love. So I don't mind wiping your ass. I don't mind cleaning your shitty underwear. Like it's just a part of my job like this. I'm so blessed to have the time freedom that's like, okay, I know what my job is. And so like to bring it all home is that I think there's a lot more as people are waking up and we're learning the lessons. We can look back on the people, the programmers, our parents, and we can learn those lessons. Like, dude, 2-3 generations from now, like our great grandkids, like, dude, they will, the fucking Bidens, the politicians, the oligarchs, they'll be forgotten.
This race thing, this transgender thing, that it won't even like I would hope, I would assume that will be something like we think about now, like
we'll laugh at our ignorance.
Yeah, and that's it, like that meme. And
no big deal.
And I don't know how we're doing on time, but this could be for the next conversation. But if you think about what we've been talking about with like Lungold, you have to have struggle for progress. These problems have to be presented for the solution to come forward. It's this evolution of consciousness. Like my parents, their parents, I don't think they were bad. I think that based on the resources and the information they had at that time, that's what they did. And we can look back on it in two ways. And this is like what we've been talking about, your mindset. You can look back on that as a trauma. You can look back on it with regret, or you can say, wow, man, like that was shitty, or you can say, wow, this is what they had, this is what they knew, look at what we have now, and what better choices based on what I've experienced, what I've seen, what can I make with that? What better choices, what better information are here for me to move forward, and that's like, I mean, you apply that to a lot of personal traumas in your life, whatever, like without that, where would you be? And what choices did you make based on that? Did you love? Did you understand? Did you, forgive in whatever capacity possible? I know it's fairly broad because there's a lot of trauma. There's some shitty things that have happened to some people, to everybody, to people that haven't happened to me. So I don't say it in a matter of fact way, but I do believe that the way you choose to look at it and what you do with it is going to directly reflect on your future or your reality. And so that's the information we have now. Like, I don't think our parents had that, and their parents didn't have that. And in 1910, they probably didn't have that thinking, or at least it wasn't commonplace or as accessible as it is now. But through this type of technology, people waking up, the veil being pulled back, and people seeing this isn't working properly, that those questions were inevitable. But in order for them to be inevitable, these things had to happen, because it would have never, the yin and the yang. So it is an exciting time. I was listening to a podcast. Actually, it was a motivational podcast that I started listening to, where it's just like a montage of different speakers, and they, get you fired up. But there's a guy on there, and I can't remember his name, but he was saying that this is the most exciting time as in our known history for a human being to be alive. Like, think about the resources, think about the quality of life that we have, think about the information and the decisions and the things that are coming our way. Like, couldn't ask for a better time to be alive, which is a very sobering thought in most people's, at least mine, daily thinking. Like, I'm not thinking that daily. I'm not thinking that constantly. But it is. 100%. I mean, and if you do, it can change what that red light meant to you, or, your kid shitting his pants, whatever, know? So yeah, it's really, it's pretty exciting. It's very exciting. And so, that with crypto, bro, it's pretty exciting. All of it. Yeah.
Every aspect. I mean, you put it so eloquently, is that, everything's gotten us to where we are now, and the people who come before us did the very best with what they had. But if you choose to not learn from their mistakes, then the evolution stops with you.
Well, and just to caveat on that real quick about learn from their mistakes, I would challenge that verbiage, because it wasn't a mistake. If they did the best, it would be to learn to accept what it was, to not judge it, to not be resentful or hateful or harbor it and hold it. And the learn from the mistake would be to learn that that had to happen for us to be having this conversation and philosophizing. Like, my dad didn't have time to do this shit, and I guarantee you his dad didn't have time to sit down and talk or think about shit. It wasn't even one, they probably wouldn't even have consciously thought of it, and it would have been laughed off the table. But those things had to progress, and those people had to die of lung cancer and heart attacks at 40 because they were working, whatever, for us to be sitting here at this table taking the time on a Friday afternoon to just fucking rap about some crazy shit, like, that's fantastic. Like, so looking at that and being grateful for where that's gotten us, and looking at the future challenges as the same struggle that they had. Like, you can be resentful or fear it, or you can say, fuck, that's exciting.
Right.
I'm so stoked for the treasury to shit the bed.
Right.
Whatever, because that's going to lead us to maybe Noah and William will be sitting around on their billions of dollars of crypto and, helping, doing something with it we can't even think of.
Oh, yeah. It's already going to happen.
That we can't even think of that, who knows? Be in space, helping the poor aliens or the starving aliens. I don't know. Who knows?
It's going to be incredible.
Yeah. But without our toil,
right,
they won't have that.
Right.
And I think if we can instill in them that when they get to here or wherever it is in their life, that they look back on us and have the same forgiveness and acceptance and gratitude, so that they can realize that we did the best we could with what we had, and that they need to take that, their duty, their job, if you will, is to take that, cherish it, and then use it to move forward, because I think there's been in our culture a pretty good emphasis on looking at what your parents did to you, or how you grew up, or the disparity between races or between social, as some kind of a victimization thing. Like someone did this to me, and I'm going to pack this around. The reason I can't be a doctor is because I was black, or I was white, or I was like,
Right.
No, the reason you're not a doctor is because you think that shit. And and that's where you're at.
Right.
You could, those things happen to you, and I'm not trying to be arbitrary about them, but you could look at them in this format. Like, that had to happen for you to have this question.
Yeah.
If you were silver spoon in your mouth, candy ass kid, you may not be a doctor anyways because you're a shitbag because everything came easy to you.
Yeah, like, lazy.
Who knows?
Yes.
So, I don't know, man. It's exciting times.
It sure is, man.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's killer, man.
All right. Well, first podcast, man. Thanks for having me in here, dude. It was really fun. I didn't know what we were going to really do, but I liked where it went.
Me too, man. I really appreciate it.
So, all right. We'll have to do another one.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because now we got to get deeper into crypto, real estate. I mean, because we're in the hottest,
real estate,
biggest
levels of
bubble.
Consciousness, ancient aliens.
Oh, yeah, man.
I mean, oh, my gosh.
Dude, it can go deep.
Yeah.
Deep in them guts.
Yeah, it can. So, whoever watches this, if anybody does, I got to say this because I feel like a podcast, man. Smash that subscribe button.
Nice.
And tell 10 of your friends about it.
There you go. Do it. Do it. All right. Oh.